The Netherlands have given Afghanistan a target of 180 runs to win in the 34th match of the World Cup. Batting first after winning the toss at Ikana Stadium, Lucknow, the team was all out for 179 runs in 46.3 overs. Engelbrecht played a half-century of 58 runs. The rest of the batsmen could only perform well. Afghanistan's Mohammad Nabi took 3 wickets and Noor Ahmed took 2 wickets. The process of wicket fall that had started after the power play continued till the death over. The Netherlands team scored 12 runs after losing 2 wickets in 6.3 overs of the death overs. The Netherlands team was all out for 179. Of course, after recovering from the first setback in the power play, Netherlands innings fell apart in the middle overs. The team batsmen could only coordinate with each other between the 11th and the 40th over. During this period, 4 batsmen of the team were run out. However, amidst continuous falling of wickets, Engelbrecht played a struggling inning of 58 runs. Later, he too was run out. The sequence of this fall of wickets started with the run out of opener Max O'Dowd, 42 runs. In the 12th over, the team lost 7 wickets, scoring 101 runs in the middle of 30 overs. Well, we have 3 of the eminent people guests joining us. One of them is David Brooks, who joins us from London. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Sunil.
David, how do you get into a match with 4 spinners? I mean, this defies all cricketing logic and cricketing, thoughtfulness. Yeah.
Well, I'm a bit older than you, Sunil, so I can remember the days when India fielded 4 spinners: Bishan Bedi,
yes,
Chandrasekhar, Prasanna, and Venkataraghavan.
Well, that looks like a century ago in the 1979 or 75 World Cup. But yes, in the modern day cricket, with the white ball, how do you walk into a team with 4 spinners? I mean, this defies any kind of logic. Just run me past in the past 20 years. When did you see that? I haven't.
Well, you pick the best bowlers available. If 4 of them are spinners, you play them. That's the logic.
Interesting. Tasmin, how did the game unfold today in the entire scheme of things? Because this is an all-important game for Afghanistan, also for Netherlands, because they are trying to wait and make it into the top 8. Your views very quickly, Tasneem.
Yeah, definitely a super chaotic day today for Netherlands in the office. I don't believe I've seen a bigger tragedy so far this World Cup. I think it started at the toss for me. I'm not sure what their thinking was when they held the team sheet in their hands and they seen 4 spinners on the cards today for Afghanistan, and they still chose to bat first. For me, I'm not entirely sure what was the thinking behind that, because they do have great bowlers in Van Meeken as well in their own squad, and I would have thought they win the toss and send Afghanistan in to have a bat first, personally. Again, they went from sitting in a point of 72 for 1 to 179 all out. The biggest, highest wicket taker today being the run-outs on the cards for them today. I'm not entirely sure what was going on, but from what I was seeing in the game, guys were hitting the ball hard, straight to middle and mid-off, and just taking off. Like, that's criminal for me at the end of the day, because maybe if you hit it soft enough that the fielder needs to be running onto the ball to pick it up, but not the case. There was no intention, no drop and run, none of that. It was just absolute criminal what Netherlands did for me today. I expected a lot more from them, and I was actually rooting for them, and I'm not sure what was going on in the entire process, thinking I'd like to chalk it out to pressure as well, because very well bowled from the spinners up at the top. They didn't give much away, even when they did have the chance to try and take on a couple of runs, 1s and 2s, and the fielders played their part today. It's the typical idea of bowlers bowling well and being backed up by their field for me. That created the pressure and forced Netherlands to start forcing to look for those runs.
Tasneem, you talk about pressure. How do you build up a pressure, especially at a time when there is enough pressure on the team themselves, because they had the pressure of making it to the semi-final? There's enough pressure for them to win it with a big margin and contain the score. How do you manage to do it and then perform well like the way Afghanistan did?
Yeah, so they did brilliantly well for me. You know, like you said, there are outside factors without considering what's actually going on in the game. We do know both teams are fighting with the belief in their hearts that they can still make a semi-final right now and cause an upset probably for Australia. But not only that, they have the thought in mind to stay within the top 8 as well, to find themselves within the Champions Trophy, to get a chance to play again against these big teams and the likes of them in it. But what happens is when you step on the field and you're failing to find the gaps, you're hitting straight to fielders, you're failing to find that one ball that you can actually get under and hit over the top and exploit the power play. They didn't do badly for me in the first 10, you must understand. They had 62 for 1 in the first power play, and that's been an average pass score for a lot of teams that are going on to score 300 and so forth. So I'm not entirely sure where and at what point they decided this is 50 over cricket, this is not T20 cricket. 50 over cricket, you can have 5 quiet overs and make up for it at the end. That's the nature of the game. But they just completely felt like they were running out of time. I remember looking at the scorecard around 25, 26 overs, and they were on 126. And in my mind, I told myself, 25 overs in on 126, pass score maybe 250. But then again, the runouts became a game. Not taking anything away from Ali Lakil behind the stumps as well. He did brilliantly for me. He took the finest of nicks on 2 or 3 occasions as well. So they just never got going. They never got a start. Again, you can talk about Engelbrecht getting to 58 and so on, but he had no support at all.
Right.
At the top of the order, once Max O'Down was done, it was done. They just looked anxious. They just looked like they were trying to go somewhere and they never really had a clear map of where they were going.
Absolutely. They had no clear understanding of where they were going. Of course, David, when you walk into such an important match and you have a man who's just giving them all the instructions, did you manage to see the paper floating in the team when Netherlands get going? If that is the case, how did they manage to lose out the cricketing sense? Your views?
Well, I think you have to give credit to Afghanistan, and they had a shaky start because, you know, Netherlands did get off they went off like a train. I mean, they scored more in the power play than they have in the rest of the tournament, and it was one of the highest scoring power play scores, 62, I think, off 10.
Right.
They were going like a train. I mean, Max O'Down, he's got longer hair even than you, Sunil. He looks like a sort of heavy metal rock star, but he got 41.
Yeah, actually, he's a DJ.
Well.
Let me just tell you, he's a part-time DJ, and he plays officially in a club. Well, go on.
Well, so do I. I think you too, Sunil. I think you're of a musical persuasion. But Max O'Dowd looked great. 41, no time at all. And then run-outs, you know, running between the wickets. Something there for the batting coach to work on, because, you know, they ran themselves out. 2 guys ran themselves out, and then there was that stumping. So without the assistance of any catches or any bowls, they managed to lose 3 wickets in a mad spell, or, you know, mad 10-minute spell. I mean, I know there's a lot of coffee shops in Netherlands, but these guys looked like they'd spent too much time in one this morning. It was just madness because they got off to such a good start. Then you had the 2 of the premier Afghan spinners, Rashid Khan, who I have enormous amount of respect for. I've seen him play a lot here in England in Sussex, where he plays in the T20 Blast, and he's a real favourite. The whole town of Brighton and Hove, especially the Afghan community, which is a large one here, and Nabu. You know, they put the screws on. They bowl brilliantly. They're 2 of the finest spinners in the world, so you can't leave either of them out. And you know, it was quite a slow wicket, so it's quite conducive to pace off the ball. And I think Afghanistan, after that shaky start, where the fielding was very sloppy in the first half an hour, but then they got going. But Tasneem's absolutely right. These 2 teams have got so much to play for. Afghanistan with their eyes on a semi-final prize, and Netherlands with their eyes on a Champions Trophy place, possibly displacing England as the only European team in that tournament.
Very interesting.
And that would be quite astonishing outcome, and one that's likely to signal the end of most of the England participants' careers.
Well,
I mean, we've already heard, I can exclusively reveal that Ben Stokes has played his last ODI. I've heard from inside the camp that after this tournament, he'll be going back into retirement into ODI cricket, that his sole focus is going to be on the Test match series against India, and that he will be having knee surgery. I mean, this is widely known, this part, that he's going to be having knee surgery when he gets back to the UK at the end of this tournament, and with a view to getting fit to lead the team against India in that important Test series in, I think it's February,
yes,
am I right?
Absolutely, February and March. Well,
I hope to be there.
That's an exclusive that is coming here, that Ben Stokes is going to retire from ODI. He's going to continue his career with the Test series, and also talking about his long impending knee surgery. Well, it's very exciting that you talk about England cricket, but how come they describe and they announce the credit system and the contract system right in the middle of an international ODI like World Cup, and at the same time you have retirements at the same time? Just throw some light before we go back to our match today, David.
Your finger on it there. Can you imagine being in an English dressing room where some guys are being in the middle of a tournament, you've all got a letter to open, some of you have been offered 3-year contracts, fancy cars, sponsorship deals, endorsement deals with leading clothing companies, and some of you got nothing. Some of you got nothing. So David Willey received that news and immediately announced his retirement from international cricket, saying, I'm not going to be treated like that. And you're introducing more divisions in a dressing room that's sadly lacking any leadership. Now, my man on the inside is saying this is a team that's lacked any motivation or leadership throughout this tournament. So let's look at the leadership team. Matthew Mott. Who is he? His claim to fame is that he was successful with the Australian women's team. Now, like you, I'm a huge supporter of women's cricket, Sunil, but Australia top of the tree. You don't need to be Albert Einstein to go in there. You don't need to be Jose Marino to go into the Australia women's team and do well with that. Where was his experience in men's cricket, international cricket? He doesn't have any. He doesn't know English cricket. If he did, he wouldn't employ the coaching staff or selected the team. You know, look back to that Test series. Remember the game against India, England-India? Crawley and Duckett, Ben Duckett and Crawley. They were the opening partners who did very well against India. They've done very well in the Test and the Ashes. They score at 6 runs and over, and they know how to keep the straight balls out. Yet we open with makeshift pair of Johnny Bairstow, who is a flat track bully. Give him a flat track, and he's as good as anyone. Give him a track that's moving around. And wasn't it great, Sunil? You must have loved that passage of play yesterday with Shami and Siraj and Bumrah. Absolutely. Having the ball on a string, 3 slips, that catch taken at 3rd slip, credit to Rohit Sharma. There's aggressive Test match field placings. And we see that the 50-over game in India is more analogous to the Test type team in terms of the challenges it presents the batsmen than it is a T20 hit. You know, a quick 20 or 30 followed by a swish across the line and your stumps being uprooted, that's not going to win you World Cup 50-over matches.
Well, very interesting point he made. Tasneem, I have an very, very thoughtful point that I have to take on from where David had left. In the time of the World Cup, the technology and everything put together, including the papers reaching out in the field, what is the old traditional way of field placements? It seems that most of the skippers have got it wrong in this World Cup, and you can't go into a match with 3 slips and then get a catch on it, which means that there's something telling you with the cricket sense that, hey, this is important. And mind you, these are no notes shared. So what's wrong with the cricketing skippers in the World Cup today?
You know, I think it's gotten to the place where, like you said, because of technology and because of all the access guys have these days, we've been talking about team matchups. We've been talking about the fact that teams come in having done their homework on each other. We know that Rohit Sharma is a great puller of the ball. You know that Virat Kohli is a serious gunman that drives the ball on any given day. But for me, the field placements yesterday, I personally believe I backed Rohit 110%. If you see someone coming out and setting a field with 3 slips, that means he knows his bowlers are definitely going to be moving the ball based on the fact that they're coming from having just batted on that track, as well as they can tell to say that these guys they're looking just to go, you know. If you have anything swinging away, fourth stump, fifth stump, and still swinging away, that tells you that they're getting good swing and seam. We've discussed this already.
Yes.
That's 2 movements off the track, 1 in the air, 1 off the track. And already what this does present is a chance. I'm all for Rohit having 3 slips yesterday, and he proved to the world to say he knew why he had 3 slips out there yesterday. It's the same thing as saying you're looking to bowl the short ball to Rohit Sharma, but you have no deep square out. You need to be prepared for the fact that, yes, he might middle it, but what about 5 out of 6 times? What about the 1 time he doesn't middle it? You need a man out there waiting to get the catch. So I think it's more a case of teams have moved away from the traditional field sets of your 2 fielders in a power play that need to be out, is your third man fine leg. But now they go at the case of looking where a batsman's strengths are, looking at the percentages of where they've had their most dismissals at this time. For example, you won't entirely, you have guys that have constantly, I'll go back again, and we can talk about KL Rahul. He's come out 2 times, if not 3 so far, to the short ball. I have no idea why Sri Lanka didn't push to bowl the short ball to him earlier yesterday and get that deep square out, get that deep mid wicket out, because you know he hasn't middled it. He hasn't done much. He's been dismissed twice in previous games trying to pull the ball. So it's no longer just, we keep talking about the way the game is evolving. We're going from 60, 70 runs in the last 10 overs to 100 almost becoming a par score right now. So the game is changing. The game is evolving, and this is that credit to technology and being able to dissect each and every person's game, figure out where their weaknesses are, and play to that as well.
I'm going to bring you back onto the discussion today. 4 runouts. If you were the coach in the team with 4 runouts coming in and just completely dismantling what your team's score looks like, how do you react with your boys?
You know, personally, I won't tell you because I do have some coaching knowledge as well under my belt. But I'll tell you what would have happened to me if I was one of those players and my home domestic coach, Trevor Peary, was sitting in our dressing room. At the innings break, we would have been running laps around the field because according to him, we had somewhere to be running to. So he'd give us more than the freedom that we needed to keep running. It's criminal. You know, one is understandable, maybe miscommunication, but 4, I would love to know where they were definitely running to.
In fact, Ryan Cook is the coach of the team. He very meticulously plans everything in the field around the dressing room, and he's also the coach who works with Gary Kirsten Academy. I'll bring on David Brooks here. David, would you agree with Tasneem's way of treating the players who were just getting run out and letting their team fall apart?
I mean, I bow to Tasneem's expertise and the clarity with which she laid out how players think about this. You know, Tasneem's played at a high level, and you can tell from her comments the game has changed, and Tasneem is right at the centre of that.
Right.
And I can only watch from the sidelines as a fan, but she's absolutely right. She's nailed it as far as I'm concerned. You know, these teams now have plans. They have matchups. You know, that's why. People that say blame the players, that's the refrain I'm hearing. You know, every time I speak up against Butler, the captain, Mott, the coach, Luke White, the selector, I'm told, oh, it's the players. No, it's not players. It's how you manage those players. No one says that in football, in soccer. Imagine that. Imagine Manchester United having a run of losing matches and not blaming the coach. That coach is being hung. He's being hung, drawn and quartered as we speak. The Flying Dutchman. He's going to be going back to Holland away from Manchester United. Because you do, in football, you do blame. No, you give credit to the coach and you blame the coach.
Absolutely.
Rugby too. And cricket is no different to that. Yet there are those who say, blame the players. You know, West Indies, I'm always talking about West Indies, but they have this culture of blaming the players, especially the legends of the game who ruled the roost in the 80s and 90s. They turn on the current crop and say they're just not good enough. Not as good as we were. No, there's every amount of talent in the Caribbean. There's plenty of talent on display, in this World Cup. But it's the way you marshal that talent. And as Tasneem said so eloquently and so clearly,
David,
place fans free to play.
David, I'm afraid I'll have to interrupt you here and get your view on another important point. How important the ICC associate members and the younger teams for the growth of the game, because Netherlands clearly is fighting to be in the top 8, and Afghanistan is fighting very clearly to become the top 4 team so that they can play the semi-final. Your views? It's not just the financial remuneration, we're also talking about the respect and also more match time. Your views?
Absolutely right. I think this is a big issue that hasn't been discussed on any other network, but it's absolutely key in that, well, for any number of reasons. Again, I could make a football analogy. Yeah, I mean, if you apply that type of thought into the football world, it's clear that, everyone would take it as read, that if you've got to sit, well, Sunil, can you just expand? What's your view on that? I'd like to hear your view, because with the associate nations, they need to play 50-over cricket. And my good friend Mark Nicholas, who's just taken over as president of the MCC, not just any old cricket club, they set the rules. They have responsibility like the RNA in golf.
Yes.
They have the MCC Cricket Committee. He said as his first public statement that bilateral ODIs, that's 50-over matches between 2 different countries, should only be played during the World Cup. The rest of the time we should feast on a diet of T20s. Now, I hope India lift the trophy on Sunday for the simple reason that Indian cricket fans and, crucially, the BCCI will take their beady eyes off attacking 50-over cricket and appreciate it for what it is. Michael Atherton, very good journalist now, fantastic England Test match open. He said if he had one day in his life left to watch cricket, he would choose to watch a 50-over match. And I agree with him. It's got everything. You've got the fast bowlers looking for a wicket in the opening overs, not looking to contain, not bowling wide Yorkers, bowling wicket to wicket, moving it around. You've got the middle overs, which these days, as Tasnim was saying, power plays and everything, much more tactical, lots of interest there. And then you've got the good old last 10 overs.
David,
which in the case,
I'm afraid, David, if you've got 10 seconds, who would be your favorite today? Because we are right at the end of the program today. 10 seconds. Yeah. Which is your favorite team today?
It's Afghanistan to win. Afghanistan to win at a canter. This game will be over shortly. They'll win with minimal wickets and they'll absolutely thrash Netherlands today. And that means they're on course for a semi-final position.
Absolutely. Semi-final position. Before we wrap up, Tasmin, one last quick word from you.
Yeah, so currently, just to give you a quick update, Afghanistan are already on 22 for no loss. This coming in just 4.2 overs. So I'm with David on this one. Afghanistan are definitely going to look to not just claim the 2 points today, but definitely get an up on their net run rate. Because at this stage, they're going to find themselves sitting at 5th, tied on team points as well, with Pakistan right now, who's on 6, as well as they go ahead of Pakistan and just below New Zealand. Both teams will now be on 8 points at the end of this match for Afghanistan. What's going to be the breaker, whether or not they find themselves within the top 4, will be their net run rate. So they'd want to finish this game as soon as possible, but with maximum wickets in hand as well. And I definitely say, I said it 2 days ago, I said Afghanistan has been mentioning they're not here to book a place in the Champions Trophy. They're here to find themselves in the semi-final and see how far they go.
Well, absolutely. We have, for the first time, we don't have a house divided. Everybody is rooting for Afghanistan, it seems. And what you're going to expect is long hits over the boundary and some celebration, wild, crazy celebration at the end of the match, because what we have here is a clear 5th contender for the semi-final post.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.